Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 19 of the Crazy Canuck Truckin' Podcast. I am one of your hosts. I am Size Matters Dakotan, and my name is Bridget. Wanted to make sure to let you guys know that we are very grateful for you as listeners. Thank you for that. Please, wherever you're listening to us, whether it would be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc., give us that 5-star rating. Subscribe so you don't miss a new episode as we send them out every couple of weeks. And by all means, share with your friends. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Crazy Canuck Truckin', and you can email us with any ideas you have at crazycanucktruckin@gmail.com. If you don't want to hear just audio, follow us on YouTube. We're there too. So, also want to give a great big thank you to Jesse, James Dupree, and Dixie Inc. for our theme music. Well, Mr. Co-host David Henry, the Crazy Canuck, how are you today?
I'm doing good. Size Matters. Busy day in trucking as usual. There always seems to be something to do, and it was kind of at the time of taping this, it's a little cool outside and a little slippery in places. Saw some people that were parking in all the wrong places, and I'm thankful that I didn't have to be one of them. Of course, I try to avoid that stuff.
I was going to say, take a spot wherever you can, except those that are in the ditch and on the berms. That's probably a bad idea. So today,
not the greatest area.
It's not. Today, though, we have a guest who gets to park wherever she wants because she probably gets there first before everybody else. Will you introduce her, please?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Her name is Amber Balcaen. And she is a third-generation race car driver from Winnipeg, Manitoba. And in 2016, Amber made Canadian history when she became the first Canadian female to win a NASCAR Sanctioned race in the USA. She has successfully utilized her racing platform to be one of motorsport's largest female influencers, inspiring and motivating others to pursue their dreams, break stereotypes, and have a positive impact on society. And I want to welcome you, Amber, to our program. I hope I pronounced your last name right.
Good.
And thank you for coming on and being with us.
Thank you for having me. It's always great to be with a local company in Winnipeg.
We got a couple of bases covered here. So we have I'm covering the Winnipeg area, and Bridget, Size Matters, is out of North Dakota.
Perfect.
And today you're down in North Carolina.
I am, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I'm going to start with how'd you get there from here? Knowing that you're a kid who grew up north of me. I mean, I want to start with the whole backstory. Where did this start? Because I kind of like fast cars too.
Yeah, so really cool that you're in North Dakota because I consider North Dakota my second home. I grew up as a kid racing there every Wednesday in go-karts, and then I watched my dad race there every Friday. So I spent just as much time in the summer in North Dakota as I did in Winnipeg. So I'm very, very familiar with North Dakota. Have you been to the Red Pepper? Well, of course you have been. Red Pepper?
Of course. Yes. Yes.
My favorite Mexican restaurant there. It's awesome. But so yeah, I started racing at 10 years old in go-karts. The closest oval dirt track. So I grew up in a racing family that raced oval dirt. So the closest oval dirt track to Winnipeg was in Grand Forks, North Dakota. And yes.
Were you racing like 2 cycles, 4 cycles? If you started at 10, you were probably 4 cycle and then went to 2s?
We ran like the Briggs motors. So they're, yeah. And then the 4 cycles, those were kind of what they called outlaw carts. So they're like a little step higher than us. But then after that, I raced mini sprints, which mainly I raced in Winnipeg at Red River Co-op Speedway. We did a couple races a year in Grand Forks. But when I was younger, my ultimate goal was to race 410 sprint cars at River City Speedway in Grand Forks. If you've ever been there, you know the Bull Ring is the awesomest racetrack there ever is. I've been to, I don't know exactly how many racetracks, but I'd say close to 100, and that is by far my favorite track as a fan and as a driver. There's just so much excitement. It's high banked, really really, really short track, really fun. So in 2014, that's where I raced a 410 sprint car.
That's fantastic. Yes, know the area very well. Been to a lot of races there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Bridget, did you ever race at Grand Forks?
So my very limited little driving fast career was dirt track for we drove street stocks. This was way back as I was graduating from high school, and I grew up in the south central part of North Dakota. So we never raced on the big tracks like Grand Forks or Fargo, but smaller places like Wishick, Lisbon, Mandan.
Yeah.
So yes.
I haven't raced at Lisbon or Mandan, but my dad has. So
yes.
I've been there a lot. That's awesome.
The difference would be your car was for you. My car was, I was just driving powder puff. So we got points on the car. Cool. And so because of a slight size difference, they would zip tie a block of wood to my foot so I could accelerate far enough to drive. Oh gosh. Because we can't, because the seat's welded.
Tie it to the pedal? They did it to your foot?
No, they zip tied it to my foot. So that way when I was in the car, I had enough length to drive. So yeah.
Really funny. I've heard of zip ties for a lot of things, but I can't say I've ever seen someone zip tie a block of wood to their foot.
Yep. Learn something new every day, Amber.
Yeah. So Amber, because you came from a racing family, this must have been really easy for you to get into racing and everything handed to you, right?
No. Because so unlike most third generation race car drivers or even second generation, I had to do everything on my own. At 10 years old, my dad said, if you want to race, you have to pay for the car yourself. You have to work on the car yourself. So since 10 years of age, the last 18 years, I've been raising my own sponsorship dollars and doing all the business associated with that. Now, as I spoke about, I raced dirt for the better portion of my career when I was younger. But the last 4 years or so, I've transitioned to the NASCAR world. It is very expensive to race dirt. It is extremely expensive to race in NASCAR. So instead of having to find $10, $20, $30, $40,000 to race on dirt, I'm having to find like $1 million to race in NASCAR. So it's definitely been a little more difficult. And Bridget, I just realized I didn't answer your question of how I got to North Carolina. So in 2014, when I raced sprint cars, I caught the eye of the NASCAR diversity program. When I raced mini sprints, I won quite a few races, did well in the 410 sprint car as well, got rookie of the year. And so the NASCAR diversity combine reached out to me and was like, have you ever thought of NASCAR? And so I went to their combine, and ever since then, it kind of opened my eyes to see what was really possible for me. At that time, I was in college at Red River College, taking a business administration. I just didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. And after I finished that, I went to U of M to further my education. And about a month into school, I had an aha moment, and I was like, you know what? I want to race cars for a living, and I can't imagine doing anything else. I know this is going to be really hard because not only did I have to raise my own sponsorship for a hobby racing, but to raise all that money for an actual career in racing is a whole nother step. And on top of that, I'm a Canadian wanting to race in the US. Well, Canadians can't just move to the US. It's not that simple. We have to get a work visa. So I had to figure out how I could get some type of visa to move to the US, which also costs a lot of money, and get an immigration lawyer. And there's a lot of obstacles and a lot of adversity I had to overcome just to get to the US, never mind get in a race car and win races. So,
right.
yeah. So luckily I had enough accolades to, for the US immigration to believe that I was equipped enough to move here on an athlete visa. So I now have my P1 visa, and that's how I'm here working and living in the States. And why North Carolina? Because it is the hub of NASCAR. So how I explain is, if you want to be a country music star, you move to Nashville. You want to be an actress, you move to Hollywood. You want to be a NASCAR driver, you move to Charlotte.
That's exactly right. That is where you go. That's where all the teams are housed, all the garages are. That's the place to be.
Yeah.
I knew the answer to the most of that question, Amber. And that's the reason I asked it, because that is what impressed me the most. I mean, there's lots of people that race, right? But that's something that caught my eye the most about you. It doesn't hurt that you're a local lady, from Winnipeg, and I've seen your dad race a lot. Not you as much, but I really love that story, and the fact that your dad told you at 10 years old, you want to race, that's fine, but you need to raise the money. You need to do all of this yourself. That is really cool. And I've tried to do the same with my girls growing up. It doesn't matter if you're a girl or a guy. If you want to do something, you just go ahead and do it.
Yeah, it definitely made the road more difficult. I'm not going to lie. There was a little bit of resentment there for a few years why my dad couldn't help me. He had a 2-stacker trailer, 2 late models, a big, nice motorhome and everything, and would never help me with my racing. And when I was younger, I didn't really understand that. But now that I'm older, I'm so grateful for it. I'm so thankful for it, because the amount of lessons that I've learned and the growth that I've accumulated, like the racing and having to work so hard to get where I am, has built the character in me, and the skills that I've learned, like everything that I've accumulated throughout this journey, I am so thankful for, because it's made me who I am today. And I know that if my dad just gave me everything, I wouldn't know how to handle certain situations. When stuff went rough, I probably couldn't jump out of it as quick as I can now. And like I said, it's been really tough, because I'd say 95 to 98% of race car drivers come from a ton of money or are financially backed by their parents or uncles or family that has a lot of money. So like I always say, I feel like I'm always behind the eight. I've always said that I felt like I was behind the 8 ball, because I never had that financial backing. And racing is one of the very few sports that even to practice, it costs money. You can't just throw a ball. You have to pay thousands of dollars just to get practice time on the track. So I always felt like I was behind the 8 ball, but after kind of going through this journey, I realized that I'm not behind the 8 ball, because I've had to work so hard for all these things. I've learned so many different things that other drivers in my position don't necessarily know, as far as the business side and the leadership side and things like that. So I know that when stuff goes wrong or stuff goes bad or times are tough, I know that I can climb out of it and get through it and persevere.
So that leads me to the question, the business side and all of those, all the mental strength to keep going. Mm-hmm. How about the mechanics? How do you feel about when you've got to come in and try to diagnose your car?
Yeah. So growing up, I always worked on my own car. So in go-karts, I worked on my go-kart. Mini sprint, I worked on my mini sprint. I would work on my race car while my dad worked on his in the garage. 410 sprint car, same. And then as I got into the pavement world, drivers actually don't really work on their cars. They have a whole team that does that. And you'll go into the shop and you'll kind of hang out with them, but they actually don't want the drivers to touch the car. Now, does that mean you don't need to know anything? No, of course. You still need to know what the car is doing. So feedback is a huge thing when it comes to being a race car driver. So when I get in the car, they'll kind of tell me what I can expect from the car. I'll go on the track, do some laps, pull in, tell them what the car's doing. It's tight on entry, or it's loose out, or it's snug in the center. I need to be able to tell them exactly what the car is doing, going into the corner, in the center of the corner, exiting the corner. Am I hitting the rev limiter? Like every little aspect of the car as to what it's doing, I need to be able to relay that information to my crew so they can make the proper adjustments to hopefully make me go faster.
So was it last year you had a bad crash, or was it the year before? I think it was last year, right?
Yeah, it was in 2020.
So because we talk a lot about mental health, how much here on this podcast, how much of your background and the strength that you learned from the way your dad taught you, how much of that helped during that time trying to recover and get back from such a bad crash? Or maybe you want to explain a little bit what happened there.
Yeah, no, it's
for our listeners.
So the crash that I experienced this year was the worst crash that I've ever experienced in my 18 years of racing. I was in what's called a midget car. So it's kind of like a sprint car, open wheels with no wing on top. So they flip very easy and very viciously. And this particular flip, I flew up in the air multiple times and landed in a fence. It was the first time, well, I've had concussions, I've been knocked out, but I really didn't remember anything. I don't know what led to the crash, what happened during that crash. I kind of remember waking up a little bit and like being hung on the fence and having emergency responders all around me. And then the next time I woke up, I was in the ambulance. When I woke up in the ambulance, I couldn't feel my arms or legs. I thought I was paralyzed. I had burns to my arms. They're healed up now, but you can kind of see there. And it was the first time ever that I contemplated being done with racing. And that for me was huge. Mind you, I was on a lot of pain meds and medication and everything, but it's a very, very scary crash. It was the first time I've never been able to feel my arms or legs. They ended up shooting me with adrenaline and I could slowly get the feeling back. But, I recently got engaged. So for me, I was like, I'm not even going to be able to walk down the aisle of my own wedding because I'm paralyzed right now. But thankfully that wasn't the case. And it was about 2.5 month recovery. But it was not fun, but I think I handled it pretty well because of all the other adversities that I had to go through before and the mental strength that it created within me. It wasn't that difficult. Where I know a lot of athletes, when they do get injured, it's really, really hard on their mental on their mental health. People see the physical physical injury, but they don't see the mental effect of it. And the mental effect of it is actually sometimes more severe. So in 2015, after I raced the 410 sprint car, I went through severe depression. The car owner at the time decided he didn't want to be a car owner anymore. And he wanted to race my car that I raised a lot of money for and everything. And so I had to watch my dad race, my cousins race, my uncle race, and then my old car owner in my race car. And it was very, very difficult because the year prior to that, is when I decided that I wasn't going to make this wasn't going to be a hobby anymore. It was going to be my full-blown career. So I went through severe depression that year. And since then, racing has had its ups and downs. There's years that I have sponsorship and there's years that I have struggled to get that sponsorship. And when you give up everything in your life for this one dream and it's not going the way it's supposed to, it's really, really hard on your mental health. So like I said before, all of the ups and downs have built me into the person I am today. And so for that, I'm thankful. But it's going after really big dreams is tough. And you really got to keep your mental in check.
I was pretty concerned about you when I saw news that you'd been in a crash. And I don't remember if you remember, I messaged back and forth with you a few times. And I mean, you must have had thousands of people messaging you, but I was concerned, and I must say that I was impressed with how you were handling it. I mean, obviously I only see what you allow me to see, but I was really thankful for how you were trying to pull through it. I know more than I'd like to know about head injuries and coming back from head injuries. So I really applaud you for that, Amber, and for your strength in coming back from that. That's tough to do, and here you are 6 months later and doing really well.
Thank you.
So I want to go back to the physical safety. I'm not sure if everybody realizes it, but if I'm not mistaken, this year is the 20th anniversary of Dale Earnhardt's crash. And when Dale Earnhardt crashed, that really changed the safety in racing. That's when Hans devices came into play. No one could have open face helmets anymore, that type of thing. You were a little kid. This was before you really even started racing go-karts. I was your age at the time. So think about that for just a minute. Would that have been a deterrent to you in any way had you been maybe a little bit older, seen the crash with Dale? Do you think that even since then, your safety protocols have become a lot more stringent and improved over what even used to be a short while ago?
Absolutely. The safety equipment has come so long in the last 20 years. But to answer your question of if that would have kind of deterred me from racing, I don't think anything could have deterred me from racing. You know, I grew up watching my whole family race and crash too, right? That's part of racing. It's just like an athlete getting an injury, or it's part of the sport, and it's not something we overly think about. It's just when it happens, it happens. The only unfortunate thing is sometimes the crashes are much more severe than others. And like I said, my first flip, I flipped and then I got out of the car and said, "Hey Dad, do you think I can keep going?" And the car was completely mangled. Like, it was awful. But all I could think of was, no, I want to finish this race, and even though my head was all banged up, but I didn't care because I just wanted to keep racing. I was just upset that my car couldn't allow me to keep racing. Where this crash, I lost. I didn't know. I remember they were asking me, I couldn't remember my fiance's phone number. I couldn't remember the number to my, the code to my phone. I couldn't remember anything. Like they asked like the simple questions. I don't think I remembered my birthday or my fiance's birthday. Like I couldn't remember the simple things. And the fact that I couldn't feel my limbs, like I have never been so scared. And I'm not someone who is very fearful when it comes to crashes or accidents, but this one was different. And I never, had ever said before that I was done racing. And after that crash, I only told my fiance and my parents because they were freaking out, as you can imagine. But I said, "I'm done racing. This is it. I'm done. I don't want you guys to lose me over this." And then I was in a car 2 months later. But
yeah. And there's one other point though that you made, and you said it can be an accident just like any other athlete gets hurt. And I don't want people to lose sight of the fact that it is a feat of athleticism to drive a NASCAR that fast for that endurance amount of time, because you are sweating to the oldies in that car. It is hot on some of those days. It is hot in the car. It's not like they're air conditioned. No. It is truly a feat of athleticism. The same way that, David, what you do, you're not just a driver. And in the industry I'm in, we're not just farmers. We all are very good at what we do, and it's specialized. So yeah, Amber, you're an athlete as much as anybody else. Yours just has a bigger horsepower than a lot of others.
Should see her workout videos. I've seen some of the workouts and stuff that Amber's done. And I wouldn't want to compete with her.
I'm on a pretty intense regimen right now. I'm working out twice a day. One workout has to be outside. I'm drinking a gallon of water a day. I'm sticking to a diet, no alcohol. This is all for 75 days straight. So every single day, working out twice a day.
So you've done a lot of driving around. That was the other reason we had you on this podcast, is because you pulled your own race car, especially as you obviously once you got your own license to drive. And so if I'm not mistaken, when you were running down into North Dakota, many times you were driving your own truck and tag along trailer. Is that right?
Yeah.
So you have any memorable stories from that time that you can tell us?
Yeah. I mean, I think all the most memorable stories are driving to the racetrack. Like even when I was younger and my dad would pull me out of class on Wednesdays, we would head to Grand Forks and I would race. Those are some of the best times, just in a pickup truck, me and my dad talking, and then when I raced sprint cars, my dad was in his hauler. So my mom would come with me in the pickup truck and she would joke that she's like, "Oh, back in the day, me and your dad would be in a pickup truck. I could be in the motorhome, but no, I'm back in a pickup truck with you." She's like, "This is awesome." But one story that comes to mind that is a little funny is, so my dad had his truck and trailer down already, or his like motorhome and trailer. in Grand Forks. We both raced in Grand Forks on Fridays. He raced his late models. I raced the sprint car. So he beat me there. He was already down there, and I was coming with my pickup truck and trailer with the sprint car in the back. And I'm almost pulling up to Grand Forks. It's race day. I'm really excited. And my truck runs out of gas. So I called my dad. I was already in Grand Forks. And I was like, hey, Dad, like I ran out of gas. I was with I can't remember if I was driving or my friends. It was me, my friend, and my friend's husband. I think either my friend's husband was driving or I was. But anyways, he had it in overdrive. And anyways, the gas was out. Called my dad to come bring me gas. He goes, okay, yeah, no problem. So he's like, let me ask one of the officials to use his pickup truck and we'll come grab you because I don't want to take the big motorhome down there. I said, okay. So I'm waiting and we don't see him yet. And I get a call and he goes, so you're not going to believe this, but we ran out of gas going to get you gas. Pickup truck with the jerry can to get me gas, and they run out of gas. So then they had to get someone to go get them gas. So they got gas. They had to go get So it was a whole ordeal. But I still ended up getting to the racetrack on time. Everything was good, but it was just one person running out of gas after another.
Didn't have any racing gas with you to throw in the truck?
I guess not, because I didn't put it in there. So I have such a bad memory. It was quite a few years ago, but I do remember the train of events of lack of gas.
Oh, man.
Your dad is racing. You're coming in to race as well. Who pit crewed for you? Did your dad have a crew with him that handled both cars, or how did you guys do that part of it? Because normally you need a few extra hands on deck besides just mom slinging a floor jack.
Yeah. And my mom was never one to like work on the cars. Really, she was more of a moral support. Sold t-shirts and stuff here and there. But I had a friend that I met in Grand Forks. He was my crew chief for a while. And then my car owner's son kind of did a little bit. And then my grandfather, actually, he always pit on my cousin's sprint car. I don't know what happened there, but all of a sudden he was available as a crew chief. So I definitely took him up on his offer. My grandpa also raced sprint cars. So he became my crew chief a little over halfway into the season, and it was amazing, like how that changed everything. And all of a sudden I started winning heat races and doing way better, because he knew you need to know people who have the knowledge and know how to make the proper adjustments, and not only make the proper adjustments for the car, but for the driver too. Where I think my crew chief before that, he was setting it up as if he was racing the car, but each driver has different preferences for how they like the car. Some drivers like a really tight car, some like it looser. So my grandpa just knew what I liked, I guess, and he gave me a great setups, and we were really successful together. And my grandfather actually passed away this year, so it was great to get to share those memories with him. And when he passed away, like that's all I could think about is how lucky I was to get to share that with him and have that time with him, working together in the shop and at the track. And he was, I think most older people are from that generation are very stern and, not one to say I'm proud or anything like that. But he would always give me little ways of showing that he was proud. So it was cool.
It's great to have those family times and to be able to spend some one-on-one time like that. And speaking of your grandfather, he probably understood what he was seeing on the track more than most people because of his extensive racing history, and he could look at what you were doing and adjust accordingly. That's a real skill there.
He really does too, or he really did. And it's kind of funny because a lot of people would say like, oh, Lou, like whatever, but like, no, he actually knew what he was talking about. I remember a few years ago, I raced my first NASCAR K&N race, and he came and watched, and it was kind of a disaster of a race. The spark plug flew off. The car just wasn't handling that great, but I was a rookie in that series, so I thought that I was making the mistakes. And I remember he came up to me after, and he's like, the car's all wrong. They messed up the car on you. Like the car's wrong. And he was telling my dad that the car's wrong. And they're like, oh, grandpa, you know, being all supportive. And then afterwards, a few months later, one of the crew guys came to me. He goes, your car was all jacked up. Like it was so messed up. I don't even know how you raced it. Like, and I was like, my grandpa said that, but no one believed him. Like my grandpa really knew it didn't matter if it was dirt, pavement, stock car, open wheel. Like he knew what cars were doing just by looking at it all the time.
There's a gentleman that lived down the street from us for a long time here in North Dakota, and he just passed away as well, but he was the same way. He would get calls from lots of crews because he had that eye like your grandpa did, and he could spot what was going on and help the driver out more than anything.
Can I ask you his name?
Doug Howells.
I feel like I've heard that name.
It's possible. He's been around racing for a long time.
Crazy.
So it's a small world really when you think about it, because especially when you start up in this neck of the woods and begin your racing career, but to get it all the way to North Carolina, you're going to come across a lot of the same people.
For sure.
Know a lot of familiarities. And now just having the opportunity that you do to, like you said, achieve big dreams. This is a great stage for it. You're there. You're ready to go.
Thank you. Like I said before, to me, Grand Forks was my home track, even though Red River Co-op Speedway is technically my home track, but I spent every single weekend as a kid at River City Speedway. And then I raced there every single weekend for, a year or two. So River City Speedway holds a huge place in my heart. Grand Forks to me is like Winnipeg. It's like a second home. So I think that's really cool.
How are you feeling about the coming year?
I'm so excited.
In racing.
I'm so excited. I've never been more ready, more prepared for racing, which is really ironic because the last 4 years is the least amount of racing I've ever done. But I have been so disciplined when it comes to like the business side. I've been so disciplined when it comes to my fitness, my nutrition, my training on my iRacing. Like I've never been so disciplined and so focused on achieving what I want to achieve. And I feel very confident I'm going to win a lot of races and hopefully win a championship this year.
I'm really excited to follow along with that. And we'll have all of that information in the show notes. Really look forward to cheering you on. And you're engaged to be married, you said.
Yes.
And to be put off this year because of COVID?
Correct.
So what are your new plans?
So we were supposed to get married in January 2021. Now we've moved it to January 2022. But that's okay because I got a full stacked season of racing ahead of me. And my fiance Jordan has a full season of CFL football. So we're excited to be back in our sports and giving it our all now that COVID is slowly kind of settling down, and we can just go hard in our sports and celebrate at the end of the season.
See, that's another hard thing that a lot of people don't realize. And it's similar to trucking in that way, that you're away from your family, you're away from people that you know. And it's doubly more for you because Jordan plays in Canada and you're racing in North Carolina. Tell us a little bit about that, or how you cope with that and how Jordan copes with it.
So we started our relationship long distance. With COVID, we're this past year together 24/7. We went from one extreme to the other, but we've done long distance before, so we're kind of used to it. And both of us said at the beginning of our relationship, our careers are both very important to us both, and we want to make sure we're there for each other as supporters and pushing each other to be the best we can in each of our sports and just support each other. I think that's the biggest thing, is you just need a partner who's supportive of your dreams, no matter how big or crazy they are, no matter how much sacrifice is needed. And that's something that I think is great, that he's an athlete, because he understands that. He knows that, look, my racing is first right now. The training's first, because he is the same way with his football. So the fact that we mutually understand each other that way makes things a lot easier.
when I first heard that you guys were dating, or when I first realized who he was, and I started to watch him, and then he got injured, and I was like, no. I really wanted to see. I wanted to see how he was going to do. So I really wish him all the best for this coming year in the CFL, and I hope that he does extremely well, even against Winnipeg. I'll let him, as long as I don't care who he beats, just as long as he's being the best he can be.
Well, thank you.
So that's pretty cool.
I like the fact that, from what I've heard, the message that, and tell me if I'm wrong, the message that you're pretty much leaving with people is you are definitely can lay claim to the title that you are the first Canadian woman to win a NASCAR race. But above all, you're a driver, and this is what you love, and this is what you're doing. And both of us are in fairly male-dominated industries. And would you agree with me in the fact that it doesn't really matter who you are as long as you do your job well?
Absolutely. And that's the thing. My number one question is, what's it like being a female in a male-dominated sport? Well, I've been a female in a male-dominated sport my whole life, so I don't know anything else, right? But for me, I just the female thing, even though it's in that title of first female to win, the female thing is on the back burner. I don't even consider it. I just know that I need to work harder than everyone else, and I need to give myself opportunities and create those opportunities for myself if I want to make it to the top, because I have had to work really, really hard to get where I am, and I'm going to continue to have to work even harder if I want to get where I want to go. I think I've just scratched the surface of accomplishing what I really want to accomplish. So I'm just going to continue to develop and grow and learn, and just be disciplined in every area so that I can be one of those great athletes and be a champion and leave a legacy.
Are you using a lot of social media? Where would folks follow you if you are?
Yeah, I'm probably the most active on Instagram, which is at AmberBalcaen10. Also on Twitter at AmberBalcaen10. I'm on TikTok now. I just got on that. And then my website is Amber Balcaen Racing. It's AmberBalcaen racing at gmail.com. AmberBalcaenRacing.com. And I have merchandise on there. I have autograph cards, and I'm always open to answer any questions anyone ever has, whether it be racing, whether it be business, whether it be mindset, anything. I'm really into the self-development journey. I think having struggled with mental health, I found books and podcasts to really help me with that. And now I'm addicted to reading self-development books. So whether it be business or entrepreneurship or mindset, I really enjoy that. And it's things that I can apply to my racing too. So again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to message me. David knows I always respond. Even if it takes a little bit, I'll still respond. So
I've always appreciated that about you, Amber. Like when I first started messaging you, I didn't have a podcast. I was freelance writer once in a while and do my own little thing with Survive to Drive and talking about mental health. And I really appreciate who you are. And I think you are a tremendous representative of Winnipeg. I'm not going to say any gender, because you are a great representative of Winnipeg and of Canada and of Grand Forks, River City Speedway. They should be proud that you used to race there. I'm sure they are. And
gonna make me teary.
I really emotion is fine on our podcast. We're not straight-laced. But I'm really that your story really caught me. I don't know how long ago it was, how many years ago, but maybe it was 4 years ago when you first moved to North Carolina. It was at least that, because I was going through rehab for my last injury. Was 2017. And that's when I first contacted you, I think. Anyway, appreciate that. One thing we didn't get to in the beginning of the show was our 10 code. So what do we have for a 10 code today, Bridget?
That would be my fault, because I might have been kind of busy Shocking. I know. So the 10 code that I wanted to use when we started was a 10. Yeah, it was a 10:23 to stand by, because we're all going to stand here on the sidelines and watch as Amber races to the finish, because I think she's going to do a fabulous job this year. So I'm going to use a 10:23 today.
That sounds really good. Yeah, well, we will stand by and we will watch Amber as the year progresses. And no matter what, I know she's going to give herself 100% and just go for it. And Jordan's going to do the same. We wish him all the best of luck. Any final words, Amber, before we wrap up here?
This is just going to be an awesome year, and I hope you guys can all follow along, because we got some really exciting things planned for this season and really exciting stuff that involves a lot of people from Manitoba. It's great. So
that's very cool.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. Please follow me on social media if you can.
We want to thank Jesse James Dupree for his music, Jesse James Dupree and Dixie Inc. for his music. He didn't fall from the sky, Truckin' Uncle Sam. And finish us off, Bridget.
All right. Thanks once again, folks. So glad you could be here today. This was episode 19, and we'll see you soon for episode 20.